Hello, welcome to Greater Good Entrepreneur. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about persuasion and how to persuade people to see the important messages that we want to give them in the world. In order to do this, we're going to use something I call the golden glove. It's called the golden glove because it has 5 principles, and the 5 principles match the fingers on your hand. This is something I learned actually from a couple of mentors of mine, Glenn Livingston and Terry Dean. And it is really the essence of all persuasion. It works like this. Whenever we are looking to persuade anyone, whether it's what book should we read in our book club, getting our kids to try to clean their room, trying to convince a customer to buy something that we're trying to sell, trying to get somebody to sign up for our email website, trying to sell a ticket to a conference, all persuasion breaks down to these 5 key elements. And again, we call it the golden glove because it can match the fingers on our hand. Not the best looking hand, I will grant you, but all of persuasion works around this principle. We always start with, what is the big problem? Then we make a promise. After we make a promise, we provide proof that we can actually follow through on our promise. Once we provide proof, we hit them with some sort of an irresistible offer. And finally, we need to give them a reason to act now. So this, in essence, is the golden glove. So let's talk about some examples. First, we want to start with the problem. Let's say that I am a solar installer. As a solar installer, I want to sell solar panel systems to homeowners. Well, this starts with the problem. You're going to notice one of the things we're going to need to do here is to define our problem. It depends on who we're talking to. In our case, as a solar installer, I'm talking to a homeowner. Now, the way that I need to look at this is, how does my potential customer view their problem? If I'm a homeowner, if I'm the solar installer talking to the homeowner, well, there could be many reasons why people buy solar. So what we need to do as the people creating this story is to understand the problem of the person that we're speaking to. So to continue with the solar installer example, there's many reasons why someone might want to install solar. So my role as the marketing director or the owner of the solar installation business is to look at, what is it that my customer wants? What is the story they're telling themselves around solar? So I need to think about, who is my target customer for my solar installation? Well, there's many reasons why someone could want to install solar panels. So who might my target be? Well, it could be the environmentalist, the Prius driver that really cares about the environment. They have one reason why they want to buy solar, because they're thinking long-term about the environment, maybe their grandchildren. But there are other reasons why people have solar panels that have nothing to do with environmentalism. For some people, they just realize it's a good financial investment. And for people that are focused on the financial investment, what they're caring about is the dollars and cents. These are people that have a different way that are going to view the problem in a completely different way. They're going to view the problem as a financial one, that every month, I don't like paying that bill. How can I pay less on that bill? We're always trying to reduce our bills. A third reason that people might buy solar panels has to do with being independent of the grid. Even if you're grid tied, when the grid goes down for whatever reason, maybe a blackout or whatever, they can keep operating, right? So people that are concerned about wanting to continuously have lights and energy, that's a whole different set of problems. The problems they're concerned with have to do with staying independent and not being dependent just on the grid and having life stop if the grid stops. So as you can see, what we need to do whenever we use the golden glove architecture, before we really can define the problem, we need to define what we call our customer avatar. So we need to think about the person that we're talking to or trying to communicate with and what it is they care about. Let me give you another example. Let's say that you're trying to get a new room put onto a library. Maybe you've got a library that's got an old storage room. We want to rebuild that room. We want to make it into a multimedia room with all kinds of resources. And this is going to cost $30,000, just as an example. Well, there's lots of different people that use the library. And these different people will have different reasons why they use the library. They're solving different problems. For instance, let's say that I'm in charge of fundraising for this particular project. How might I address this problem? Well, who am I trying to fundraise from? Am I trying to fundraise from parents that have very young children? If I'm trying to fundraise from parents, they use the library for a lot of different reasons. As a place for their children to go, so that their children can interact with other kids, to show children how to use the library, also for the parents to be able to interact with other parents. So the problems that we solve at the library for parents are very different than the problems that we solve for, say, a senior citizen who uses the library because they no longer are working and they're using the library maybe for research or as a place to go to see all kinds of different books and films. So they have a completely different set of problems that the senior citizen is solving. So as I write my appeals to these different audiences, I'm actually going to have a completely different appeal written, even though I'm trying to do the same thing. Because a different story goes with our customer avatar. So we always start with a problem, right? So if I'm writing website content or an appeal letter, I always start with my problem. I can do it by telling a story or just being blatant and saying, here's the problem. For instance, I once wrote one of these for a script for a video that I did for a business where I was a founder. We were trying to, in this particular business, we were trying to get IT managers to reshore IT talent. So we would go to people that were senior managers in the IT department of a large company who were offshoring their work to people that were overseas, maybe to India or the Philippines. We were trying to get them to bring those jobs back to the United States. So what was the appeal we were using for them? What was the problem that they had? Well, they had a couple of problems. Number one, they had to keep their costs low. So we had to show them that we could keep their costs low by using rural talent in the United States. Because by using people in New York City, of course, it was going to cost them $150,000 a year for these engineers. But if we hired engineers that were in rural parts of the United States, we could get those people for half the cost. And there were other ways we cost justified it, right? So one of their problems was they had to keep costs low. But the other problem they had was inside, they didn't like outsourcing those jobs. They didn't like taking away American jobs. They didn't like going home and looking themselves in the mirror. So what we were able to do was to say to them, we can solve this problem of yours. The fact that you don't like offshoring jobs, we can help you bring those jobs back and you can feel good about yourself again and still have just as much money saved. So that's the problem we set. That's the problem that they have, and that's how we set up our whole video based on that problem. So we started out with actually a picture. We said, this is Rick, and Rick has a problem. He's got offshore jobs, and he doesn't like going home and telling his kids that he did that, or he doesn't like looking at himself in the mirror and saying that he did that. So we start off with the problem. Now, if I were the solar installation company, I would write my website and I would write my letters based on who I was mailing to. So if I thought I was mailing or writing a website for the independent-minded person that cared about the grid not going down, that's where I would focus. If I thought I was writing to the Prius owner, I would focus on the environmental aspects, right? We're actually doing the same thing when we're installing these solar panels, but we're solving a different problem based on who we're talking to. So the problem is key. Once you get the problem down, then we make a promise. We can deliver the best solar installation that I guarantee will make you independent of the grid, and we'll prove it. Or we are going to do a great solar installation and you're going to save, if it's about saving the environment, it's about this is how many dollars you're going to save, or this is how many pounds of CO2 you're going to save. We would use the dollars for the person that just cared about saving money. So the promise is what comes after the problem. We define the problem for them. They know that they may or may not know they've got the problem. It could be It could be hidden in their mind. They may not even realize they have the problem. For instance, the senior citizen doesn't say to himself, oh, I'm going to go to the library because I want to get some interaction with other people. They're going to the library usually to do research, but they also like seeing other people. Same with the mother who enjoys going to the library. Part of the reason he or she likes to go, well, mother, if it's a mother, it's a she. Part of the reason she likes to go is because she wants to go and interact with other mothers and other adults with the kids. So the promise is based on what is the problem. And then we want to provide proof. We provide proof by showing that we've done this before, or showing that it's been done before by other people. For instance, in the case of the library room, well, maybe we haven't built the library room yet, so we don't know that that exists. But there are probably other libraries that have done it, and we can show the success that they've had by doing that. Now, this is a great, by the way, structure that you can use every time you're writing an article or have to write it. So maybe you write something for the newspaper, or you want to write something for the newspaper, or you want to write blog posts. Anytime you want to write a blog post or you want to write an article and you're staring at that blinking cursor on the screen, go to this, right? Go to this architecture, because all you have to do is say, what problem am I trying to solve? And once you know the problem you want to solve, these things just flow right off the top of your tongue. And then the thing practically writes itself. You can even say, I'm going to have a paragraph to talk about this, a paragraph, right? You can even do it that simply. Comes out to a few hundred words, you're done. So this is a great, you can use this for just about anything. Anyhow, once we've outlined our problem and our promise, we need to give proof. So, as I said, we can show in the library case how it's worked in other libraries. Since we haven't built this new room in our own library yet, we can give proof if we're the solar installer, for instance. We can talk about other installations that we've done or other people, and we can compare the money, or we can show other places where if the grid goes down, whatever the problem is, our proof is again based on the problem, and the problem comes from our avatar. So we have our proof. We show our proof. And if you don't have proof yet, go build it, then come back and do this, right? If you've never done a solar install, do a couple of installs, then come and do this. Finally, we need to make an offer. We need to give them something to say yes to, or give them something to do. Maybe it's just sign up for your email list. Maybe it's just to give a phone call, right? I write a letter for someone to call my solar installation company. The only thing I'm selling in that letter, I'm not selling an entire install, an entire system at that point. All I'm selling is that I want them to pick up the phone and call me. Or I want them to fill out a form and send it in. Or in the case of our library, I want you to donate $25. Okay? But we need to make some sort of offer. The better the offer, the more likely it is to get filled out. So for our senior citizen, for instance, the offer might be for everybody who donates $50, we're going to put a permanent plaque on the wall that's going to have your name on it as someone that made this thing happen, right? Part of my legacy. And the last thing we do is we give them a reason to act now. Fill out the form now to get this discount. Fill out the form now to make sure that you're on the wall of fame. Whatever it is, we give them that reason to act now. So every time you're about to sit down and write a web page, you're about to write an article, or you want to convince your book club to read a certain book, think through these steps. What is the problem that they have? What is the promise I can give them if they do what I want done? Proof that it's going to work, something for them to say yes to, and a reason to act now. Follow these steps. It works in anything you want to do where you need to persuade. And think about it. We persuade almost all the time, every day. Fixing the oceans, getting people to come to our organic restaurant, whatever they are. That's it for Greater Good Entrepreneur. We'll see you next time.